Back to Terry's Talk on Clay Radio 1180 on your AM dial and terrystalk.com live stream worldwide. I want to thank you, Michelle, for telling me that Sarah Lamoureux is out there in the audience listening. I haven't been aware that Sarah's been paying attention to us for a long time. Sarah, thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for working so hard in the community to get that new playground built out there. What a great event that was a couple weeks ago. I also want to call attention to people that are sitting in the studio today. I want to acknowledge Natalie Banks, who's in the studio with us today. She brought one of her clients, TJ, to watch and listen and observe about what we do on a radio show. I hope that this is entertaining for him today. And then another dear friend of ours that works for another organization.
She said she's here for the donuts, which are really good, by the way.
Which I see that the donuts have been disappearing. We did a great job supplying donuts today. And my dear friend Meringue Lloyd, who's been so instrumental in so many things, especially last night, making sure that John was at his birthday party on time. So I appreciate these people that are just doing great things, and it was a wonderful request on behalf of TJ by Natalie to ask if he could be in the studio and listen and watch and observe and see what a great opportunity it is to be at Clay Radio, being able to have a show like this. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for raising the temperature in this wonderful studio and having so much fun. I see the light bars blinking. We've got a call-in guest. I better see if I can push the right button and get the guest to be part of today's show. Robert.
Hey there.
Hey, Robert Lee. How are you today?
Doing okay. I'm glad to make it onto your show. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for accepting their offer, and I want to know what's in your heart today? What's the passion that you want to express that has just really gotten you excited these days?
Well, I guess I wanted to start off, first of all, talking a little bit about my own personal experiences with something called hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They call it HBOT for short. A lot of people probably remember this stuff from way back with Lloyd Bridges, the diving days on TV. And they used to have those hyperbaric tanks that if a diver got the bends, you put them in the oxygen tank and bring them back because they got too much nitrogen in their bloodstream. Well, these days, they've been using hyperbaric oxygen chambers for a lot of other stuff besides just the bends from diving. In fact, as I understand it, there's about 10, maybe 12 things that Medicare or health insurance will actually cover, including things like pre-amputation for diabetic patients, all kinds of various treatments post-cancer from chemo and radiation therapy. And recently, in the last few years, they've been starting to work with more and more of hyperbarics to treat brain injuries or concussions. I kind of fell into this stuff about 5 years ago when I first started out helping some retired NFL football players, because most of those guys from the old days were never told how bad the brain concussions were. And a lot of those guys, they're hitting their 40s, 50s, 60s, and getting severe early onset dementia leading on to Alzheimer's. And they're like, why are more of these guys getting this than the average population? And so they started discovering all these things about retired football players. And a couple of years ago, they started treating more and more of these guys, experimentally at first, with hyperbaric oxygen, and realized that they were actually reviving. Their brains were actually starting to come back because of the intense oxygen treatment. Indirectly, because of that, 2 years ago, I was going down I-5 in downtown Seattle, and everybody knows Seattle traffic, and the traffic stopped suddenly, and I ended up stopping. Well, the guy in the loaded cargo van behind me didn't stop and kept doing 60 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yep, plowed into the back end of my minivan. And I ended up tearing up my shoulder, whiplash, the whole 9 yards. And that was in June of 2010. However, it wasn't, and the insurance was paying for some of the physical therapy and all that stuff, but it wasn't until the next year, January or so of 2011, when suddenly, very dramatically, I started losing my memory. I felt like I was a really old man you'd walk from one room to the next, going through the doorway, and then go, wait a minute, what did I come in this room for? And you forget. And all kinds of stuff. I'd be stumbling in my conversations and all kinds of things. And fortunately, because of my work with retired football players, I got very well connected with some of the brain doctors like Dr. Amen and, Barry Sears and those kind of people. I made a few phone calls, and one of them actually talked to me on the phone for a while, interviewed me basically. And at the end of the conversation, asking questions, they said, Robert, you have a concussion, a severe one. You need to get your butt into a neurologist. Well, by then, the insurance company was already trying to cut me off as fast as they could, so I just couldn't even afford to go to a $3,000 neurologist. But as you and I talked about last night on a preliminary call, Terry, serendipity works. Because of the retired football players, the Hyperbaric Association, some of these groups, put together another trial, and they said we need 20 retired football players, 20 car accident victims, and 20 military guys. And they used several clinics across the country. And they said, let's test these people out for cognitive measure and get them into hyperbaric treatment, 40 sessions, basically 8 weeks, every day, 5 days a week for an hour inside of one of these pressure tanks. I went in, took the test last summer. Basically, it was at Restorix Health down in Issaquah. The fellow that conducted the test, Dr. Javier Figueroa, looked at me and says, you qualify for the trial. You get hyperbaric oxygen treatment if you'd like it. And I said, I guess I failed the test. And he said, well, I can't tell you that. So I guess I failed.
You failed miserably. We've had him here on the show, and so
that's an interesting play on words because we want to pass the test, but in this case, you want to fail the test, don't you?
Yeah, you basically want to know that you actually, have a concussion. And so they scheduled me to start my hyperbaric treatment, and it was literally right after Labor Day of last year. The treatment, as I said, took about 8 weeks. It was every day, 5 days a week, for an hour apiece. And literally at the middle of the trial, after 4 weeks, 20 sessions, my memory was already starting to snap back very quickly. At the end of the 8 weeks, they tested me again, and my test scores were well above normal once again, and it was nothing short of a miracle. I honestly can tell you, I have no idea what the heck I would have done had I not had that kind of treatment. And some of the football players have gotten some very dramatic results. I understand, for example, most of you know Michael Vick, and when he went back into football, I've been told that he's actually got his own private personal chamber at home. Many of you have also heard about, the old stories of Michael Jackson having one, in his mansion down in California, that oxygen actually, revives a whole lot of stuff. The oxygen itself, it's not magic, but basically what the oxygen does is it's like a Kickstarter. It gets a whole bunch of body and brain stuff kickstarted so that it goes back at least to some form of normal and gets you to start healing on your own. And that's really what oxygen does. When you remember the fact that, most of your body is water and we breathe air and oxygen, you need those things to sustain yourself. And if you start depleting some of that too much from your body, whether it be old age or a concussion or any of those kinds of injuries, you stand the possibility of some long-term damage. I guess the question I tend to ask a lot of people when I talk to them about this stuff is, how do you know if the guy that went off last year at the mall and shot a bunch of people didn't get concussed playing high school or college football, or maybe had a car accident 5 years ago and got a concussion that they never got treated? In sitting down with some of these doctors at one of the conferences that we held annually for the football players, one of the doctors looked at me. He realized that I'd had the concussion and I was probably going in for the treatment. He goes, Robert, tell me, how fast do you think you have to be going to get a concussion from a car accident? And I said, well, I got hit by a van doing 60. And I said, maybe 30 miles an hour? And he goes, no, try 9 miles an hour. That's all it takes to get a possible serious concussion.
Wow.
And, yeah, so
so here's 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, and most people don't know this stuff. Now, taking it a step further, beyond, car accidents like myself, and there are, I understand, there are 1 million new concussions every year in America. Okay, keep that number in mind. But then there's also the football players, and I'd say 90% of the football players, depending on which position you play, walk away out of their careers with concussions, serious ones. And then you go even further. We've got 2 million of our kids coming back over the next year or two from the Middle East, from Afghanistan and Iraq. Out of those 2 million kids coming back, it's estimated that 800,000 of them are going to end up coming back with brain injuries and concussions. And we're putting them all back out in the street There's no excuse for this.
Right, they have the TBI and the PTSD, and I was reading the letter that you had written, Terry, and about fundraising efforts and things like that, and so for our military, and how much I appreciate you doing that.
Well, it's something we've got to do. I mean, it's even if it's from a selfish standpoint, you look at the cost of this stuff, and typically doctors will say, oh, you've got PTSD, so I'm going to put you on psychomeds for the rest of your life, which is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Would you rather spend $10,000 now and fix these people now and have them become productive members of society? And, hey, they basically pay taxes back into the system. Would you rather have them mentally disabled and possibly go crazy in a year or 2 or 3 and be on Medicare and medical drugs for the rest of their lives? It's not a hard choice to make. Unfortunately, it's always down to short-term money, and that's the problem. And it's the same even with insurance companies. My insurance company definitely would not pay for hyperbaric treatment for my concussion. I was just very fortunate to have walked into the Restorix clinic when they were doing this trial and got myself, into the treatment program.
Why is it that they won't pay for it? Is it expensive, or is it just something that is unknown?
Well, it's relatively inexpensive. I mean, like I said, if you end up giving somebody $500 worth of meds a month, that's $6,000 a year, and they've got to take them for the rest of their life. That's a heck of a lot of money. The hyperbaric treatments end up running around $200 to $250 per 1 hour session because, the equipment and the monitoring and the doctors and everybody else around. But by the time you're done, 40 rounds of sessions, let's say $10,000, hopefully you're fixed. And that's it. You don't have to go back.
You're done with all the medications. As I'm reading this, I'm assuming you say thanks for inviting me on today's show to talk about hyperbarics and our fundraising efforts for Jeff Brennan. So I'm assuming that Jeff was the one that asked you to call in.
He did. In fact, I will mention that as I completed the hyperbaric treatment, I'm an entrepreneur. I start businesses, I invent products, do that kind of stuff. And I got into more conversations with the people that run the clinic and realized that they had 2 separate divisions. One was Restorix Health, which has a growing chain. They're still raising money, and they're going to expand a chain of these hyperbaric clinics up and down the West Coast. And they also have a nonprofit foundation called the Restorix Foundation. They ended up approaching me as I was completing my rounds of hyperbarics, and they asked if I would serve on the board of directors of the foundation, and I very gratefully accepted. I'm happy to be on the foundation to help them out. I started this year, and among other things, one of the things we did discuss were the troops coming back from the Middle East and the lack of treatment for most of these people. The VA is dragging their heels. Of course, it's another bureaucracy, just like every other government agency. And they have looked at hyperbarics, and there are some people within the VA that are now seriously considering it. But, of course, there are others that are against it and don't want to spend the money. So what we decided to do was literally create fundraising, even if we have to do it one trooper at a time and raise, the $10,000, $15,000 a piece to get into each fund and to bring them in for the full treatment. And we're hoping that this will gain more momentum as more and more of these military folks go through the treatment and start coming out going, my God, it worked, and I'm actually being productive again. There are videos already online, for example, out of Louisiana. There's the Harsh Center, which also does hyperbarics, and Paul Harsh and his group had been doing this several years back. They've even got documentation, really good documentaries of young troops coming back. One kid was so depressed, he had the blinds closed, he was suicidal, wouldn't come out of his room, couldn't even think for himself. They got him into some of the hyperbaric treatment literally after 20 sessions. He was jumping up and down, more excited, highly energetic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Can you hold on with those thoughts and that conversation? We'll take a 2-minute break, and then we'll come right back to Terry's talk and have more conversation about the hyperbarics. Thank you.
Excellent.
Discover Discovery Bay Golf Club, the oldest public golf course in Washington State. What? Players rave about the layout, situated in the rain shadow of the Olympic Mountains, with great views of the hills above Discovery Bay, just 5 miles south of historic Port Townsend. Take advantage of these Clay Radio specials. 2 players, 18 holes, with the cart for just $60. Or 2 players can play all day for just $90. To learn more, visit DiscoveryBayGolfCourse.com.
Be seen at Mountain Plaza Shopping Center in Spanaway, Washington this fall. Mountain Plaza Shopping Center. Easy access invites thousands of passers-by to stop and shop. Display your logo at the newest, most enticing destination in the area at the lighted intersection of 208th Street and Mountain Highway. Enjoy high visibility on the gateway to Mount Rainier National Park. The 3-acre site is located 4 blocks from the Spanaway Super Walmart, a proven traffic generator. Be the first on the block to capture growing opportunity from the surrounding population. More than 20,000 housetops within a 1-mile radius. Mountain Plaza Shopping Center, a unique chance to grab all-day traffic generated by local business. Zoned for easy auto access. 25,000 square feet of leasable space built to suit your requirements. Available now. Be seen at Mountain Plaza Shopping Center in Spanaway, Washington this fall.
Michelle here at Terry's Talk, telling you about Griot's Garage. Griot's has the largest selection of interior and exterior automotive detailing and garage organizational supplies.
Jeff here from Terry's Talk. I know Griot's Garage car care products. They are simply the best and made right here in the U.S.
Check out Griot's Garage Free Car Care School.
So get over here to Griot's Garage Retail Store on South 38th and Union in the old Coca-Cola building in Tacoma.
Service members get 15% off all purchases. Visit griotsgarage.com/Tacoma. That's griotsgarage.com/Tacoma.
We're on this high-speed race down to the finish line here on Terry's Talk on KLAY Radio, 1180 on your AM dial, a live stream, terrystalk.com. We appreciate the listeners so much, and we appreciate the people who have got their computers turned on listening to us at terrystalk.com. We're talking with Robert Lee, a member that has had an opportunity to work with this Restorix Foundation and has actually, unfortunately, had an opportunity to be a patient of Restorix and hyperbaric. Robert, continue with the story about what we're doing to be prepared for the military members that have come back from combat with all kinds of injuries.
Yes. Well, in fact, we started looking for someone to bring into our first trials, and lo and behold, we ended up finding Jeff Brennan, who seemed to be almost the perfect guy. Jeff has served a couple of tours over in the Middle East. I think he was over in Gulf War I when we invaded Iraq, and or at least went after Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and had received numerous concussions while he was serving. Jeff has since, gotten back, redeployed back to the States, out of the Marines, and he realized that a lot of his cognitive abilities were deteriorating very quickly. That said, though, Jeff Brennan is very exceptional in the sense that Jeff is very tied into the community, and we understand that Jeff also puts in time with Toys for Tots through the Marines in the wintertime. He's done a lot of fundraising for others. This is a guy who puts himself out there for the community at large, even though he goes through what he goes through himself. This is a guy who's very selfless, and we decided that he would be the prime first candidate to a fundraiser, to get Jeff Brennan in. This is a good way to pay a guy back for everything he's done, not only as a Marine, but also an incredible guy who contributes to the community. That said, I don't know if Jeff's listening in, but I'm hoping that maybe he might be able to call in and chat for a minute or two to talk about how he feels about this and, being selected to be part of the first trials.
Well, I know that he was telling me about a month ago that it's going to cost $15,000 for him to go through this, and that he was excited because he would be able to get a lot of his memory back and remember things like you said, he would go into a room and not remember why he was going into that room, and that how excited he is to what you call being normal. I think normal's overrated, real honestly, but whatever that is. Because I go into a room and can't remember why I'm going into the room.
None of us are normal. But no, it's very true. I mean, I have to be honest with you. At that point, not even halfway through, at the time, I was actually dating a lady up in Camino Island. And I remember on a weekend, she was out of work, and I was and she's still searching for a job. And I recall sitting down with her, setting up an eBay account so she could at least start selling some of her possessions, online, make a few bucks. And so we're setting up our eBay account. Of course, I knew her address and everything and phone number, so I'm typing it all in. And I said, would you please read me your credit card, debit card number so I can punch it in here? She read it to me. I typed it in. Finished off the eBay page, closed it out. Then we went to PayPal, to get her started on a PayPal account. And I started filling in all the same information. It got to the credit card number. I typed in her credit card number.
Oh, wow.
And her expiration date. And she's like, wait a minute. How did you just remember my card number? I only read it to you once. I did not even think about
That's
it. It
amazing.
just came out. So I'm telling you that, remarkably, it came back very, very quickly, and it was very traumatic. Some of the stuff that happens, especially to people that have had this kind of a problem, like Jeff, for instance. I mean, he's had it for quite a while. So all of a sudden, it's a rush of all these new things coming back up, and it's a lot. It's quite a bit to take in. I can also tell you, we were talking earlier about the insurance companies and everything. The problem is, insurance companies really don't want to pay anything, and I hate to say this, but had I been able to do this stuff sooner, more recently, more immediately after the accident, I would have been able to recover quicker and probably require fewer sessions. But as it was, a year later, I ended up requiring the full round of 40 treatments rather than, just a few.
Right.
Honestly, I believe that if somebody has had a concussion and they end up maybe immediately within 72 hours or so having 3 or 4 sessions, which doesn't cost nearly as much, it would kickstart them enough to get them recovering very rapidly without more sessions. I really truly believe that the cost is, more minimal. The sooner you get to the hyperbaric clinic. It would be great if insurance companies and medical people would start looking at this more seriously. And Terry did ask about this. It's a chicken and egg business right now. The more people we have doing this and documenting all of this with test results and showing good results at the end, the better it's going to look, and the more numbers we have to present. Like if we have 1,000 people successfully go through this and say, look at this is before, this is midway, and this is after, then you can present that, for example, to the VA and say, look, this is totally conclusive evidence. Then you can also take it to the insurance companies. You can also take it to Medicare and say, these people can actually be helped by all of these things, and here's the evidence.
Robert, your invitation to have Jeff call in has worked, and he's online too. So if you can just hold on a second, I'll bring him up to the conversation as well.
Good show.
Jeff, are you there? Jeff, hello?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yes, I learned how to flip the right switch here. Thanks for calling in and enjoying the conversation. We've just got a couple of minutes left, maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes. So you're listening to the show. Thank you very, very much. And you heard that Robert had wanted to have you join the conversation about your experience with Restorix and hyperbaric. Join in. Tell us how excited you are about this opportunity.
Well, everything started on Cherry Stock, and it's been months. And I got to tell you, I've been really excited about everything, and it looks like things are going to be starting sooner than later. And Robert has been a huge advocate, as is Cherry Stock. And I can't believe that this is the start of potentially helping out not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of our military soldiers, veterans, and everything. I ran into a guy yesterday. His brother served 3 tours. In less than a month, he had been hit twice with an IED, and they just recently told him he had TBI. And I got to talking to his brother, and I said, well, you've got to follow through with Restorix. Call them up, see what they can do. So I've got him calling in also to see what Restorix can do for them. But my test scores, as Robert was saying, I failed the tests. I always thought that I worked at a very high level. Well, obviously, not as high as I thought I did, because I failed everything miserably. So, and Robert, he's gone through it. He's been very helpful, telling me what to expect, how things are gonna play out, and I'm so excited to be able to do this. And I got to thank you, Terry and Michelle, because if it wasn't for you guys doing this show, this would have never ever happened.
I remember asking all those crazy questions. Well, does it help this? Does it help this? Does it help this?
Well, actually, I think what it was is you and Terry both looked at me and said, well, you're all screwed up. Try this guy. He's a perfect candidate. But I'm just, I've been really blessed in my life and got with the right people. And, you know, if I wouldn't have been doing the radio show with you, Terry, none of this would have ever happened. So I can't thank you enough. And Robert and the Restorix Foundation, this is, you know, this is the Kickstart program. We're going to make this happen, and I'm so excited to get going with it. I mean, this is life-changing for me.
Well, you've done some fundraising, and that was one of the things that Robert and I talked about, and Robert mentioned it a little bit about the fundraising, $1 here, $20 to $5 there for each individual contribution. How does that work? How are you doing with the fundraising to be able to get your treatment started and funded for the duration necessary?
Well, actually, out of the 15,000, we're just about 2/3 of the way there after just a little bit over a month, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and also on September 23rd in Kirkland, and Robert's going to have to step in and tell me where that's at. We're doing a big fundraiser. We've got some Seahawks memorabilia. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be going on, and it's going to be a real high-end event that we're going to throw. And Tony LaStella is going to be out there. And it's going to be another fundraiser. So that'll actually put us over the top of what I need to go through my treatment. And then on top of that, it sets up for the next person. Regardless, I will always stay with Restorix. Even after I'm done with my treatments, I will stay and continue to raise money.
Well, I hear the music playing. We've managed to use another hour with a fabulous conversation and a fabulous idea.
Robert, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it so very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you,
and
Jeff.
It's great to hear
And
from
we'll
you.
talk to both
Thanks,
of you
guys.
more on Terry's Talk here.